And then that raw fibre is then cottonised through a 3-hour degumming process. And then this cottonised material goes into a cotton spinner.
Looks a bit like cotton wool.
Looks like cotton wool. It looks like normal wool. So we can cut the hemp that's grown on the Bellarine in the morning, decorticate, degum Geelong Dye Works, spin it in the afternoon and have yarn by the end of the day that can go straight to textile production. And Geelong could then produce that yarn and send it anywhere in the world. And this is such valuable material. To give you an idea, right now, do you know what the price of wool per kilo is? Of superfine wool, 17 to 20 microns. Right now, $28 a kilo. $28 a kilo. If we were selling and we can produce this magnificent material, the market is yearning for natural materials.
Yep.
And people know that cotton, whilst it's a natural fibre again, it's full of pesticides, herbicides, uses 25% of the world's pesticides, herbicides. That's why the price of wool is going through the roof. Normal wool, $21 a kilo. This is such good news for the hemp industry. So just picture that, and that's what we're working on. And I said to Bernadette that we need the Chamber of Commerce to come on board with this idea. We've got all of these people in their 60s and 70s with textile manufacturing experience. Geelong can be totally re-established. And the other big idea on textiles is this, that in the past, up until the late 1990s, textile manufacturing was a high labour intensive industry. It's now capital intensive. So if we have enough capital, Geelong can compete with anybody in the world because the machines that now do it, our labour costs do not militate against producing textiles here.
Charles, if we can back up a bit, the second process that once it's cut, is that munching it up?
No,
is that what?
Well, it's effectively munching it up. That's the decortication process.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah.
And those stalks become wood chips and fibre.
Yeah.
So just picture that.
Yeah.
And so from the picture of these long bamboo stalks, you take the seed off the top, and then separate the stalk into fibre and hurd, and you've got magnificent material. And the hurd, remember, goes for building purposes, or the world's best mulch. Now, just imagine the Bellarine and the whole of the city of Greater Geelong using hemp mulch. University of Tasmania, we have the reports, have done this, that hemp is the best weed suppressant of all time. So every garden in Geelong from now on uses hemp mulch. That's from the herd. Now the fibre, how would you describe this, Mick? This looks like a cup, looks like a composite cup of some sort. I promise you could stand on this, it wouldn't break. This cup is made out of chopped up fibre, what's called micronized fibre, so straight off the decorticated machine, chop it up, mix it with water, make a paste like toothpaste, dry it at 90 degrees centigrade. That is incredibly tough and strong as a composite material, made out of hemp fibre and water. When you finish with it, you can put it on your garden. It is just amazing. The other big idea is that this fibre, when you chop it up, you mix it with potato starch, potatoes and water. Now, we all grew up, how do you make glue? Mashed potato and water. You mix that potato with hemp fibre, you make edible food containers. They're used as containers, strong containers, you then feed them to the pigs. Edible food containers, talk about sustainability. And the other thing that you mentioned was carbon sequestration. So the ability, growing a hectare of hemp will sequester between 10 and 100 tonnes of CO2 per hectare per annum. That is an extraordinary sequestration possibility. Anything that's built out of hempcrete, it'll last for 400 or 500 years, will also sequester CO2.
Does it, once the hemp's cut, does it return? Does it reshoot?
No.
That's it.
The
So it's a
amazing
new
thing is
crop.
it grows to 4 metres high in 100 days from seed.
Yeah, and then it's cut.
In other words,
and then
4 centimetres a day.
Yeah, sure, but it's
The
then
root-
what happens at the end?
You cut it at the ground level, and the roots, 4 tonnes of root matter per hectare, builds your soil. You can plant straight back into it.
Sure. Yep.
Also, with hemp, you can continuously plant in the one spot for a number of occasions. You don't have to rotate. When I became involved in this many years ago, it was with the thought of a rotational crop. So it means the farmer can get a very high return per acre because it's about 100, 120 days growing, and therefore they're adding to their soil composition as well.
Absolutely, building up their soil. So the research shows that most number of crops that's been done in a row, 14 crops. So you don't necessarily have to do 14 crops, but you can do 4, 5, 6 crops in a row. Hemp is also a wonderful rotation crop. So for the sugar industry, which is having all sorts of problems, they have to rotate 1 in 5 years. They can do 4 crops of sugar, and then bang, hemp would be the perfect rotation crop, and then another 4 years of sugar. Now the other problem, of course, is with sugarcane farmers. We are presently, so here's the question with the hemp economy in the Bellarine, or the hemp economy in Geelong, and I'm working with Tom O'Connor, who I'm sure Bernadette knows. Tom understands hemp deeply. The Bellarine farmers want to be able to grow hemp, which I think is a huge opportunity. And if Geelong were to buy into this hemp economy, to buy into this plastic-free game, that would give such a fillip to these steps that farmers are taking. Now, at the conference, what came out from speakers all around the world, including ourselves, there is nothing stopping the hemp economy being developed, but as Bernadette well knows, all progress is difficult. It's easy to talk about this, the sustainability game that the Pulse has been driving. We have to keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and it will turn because thinking people will embrace these ideas. Now, in the Caribbean, to give you an idea of sugarcane farmers, because we have sugarcane farmers in Australia, and sugar has now become the new tobacco. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
So that the sugarcane farmers are saying, what are we going to grow? In the Caribbean, we're advising them to grow hemp. Why? Because you can make food, clothing, shelter from hemp, use it locally. You do not have to sell on global markets, so that you are not at the mercy of global traders. When I look back at Geelong's history, Bernadette, as you were talking, the wool, the Western District, the whole wool industry, and Geelong's wealth was built on that. That wool was shipped all around the world in those days. I don't know how they did that without mobile phones, but it was done amazingly.
Exactly, there is that history, isn't there, Bernadette? When we talk about this as a texture, the wool history of Geelong.
That's right. So Geelong has had a very, very strong textile industry from the sheep's back right through to manufacturing, natural and synthetic fibres in this region. So there's no reason at all why we can't, reclaim that grand sort of textile history that we have had in Geelong. We've got many buildings in Geelong as well that can be repurposed and are being repurposed at the moment for all manner of things. Have a look at the Federal Mill out in North Geelong. Fantastic example of how they're repurposing some of our old textile history. And there's no reason at all why we can't continue to do that and build off that history. We don't want to let that history go, because we have great opportunities now, and I think hemp is certainly an opportunity for this region to really sort of embrace that textile industry, and I think we can have it all. We really can. It's not an either or. We have some great textile producers and companies in this region that are involved in the textile cycle, the life cycle in some way, shape or form, whether they're at the sort of tail end of it or the beginning. And so I think, we need to really embrace that and look at the opportunities. And I think hemp, and particularly, when we look at products like, what the work that Ross and Lynn are doing out at Austinge, absolutely brilliant. That's a new horizon.
Exactly. Now, so what can we do to make it really happen? Because it does sound totally exciting, and
I'll
it sounds like what we here in the Sustainable Hour would call a no-brainer. Of course we have to do this. Of course.
so
But then again, I know that Geelong is not a place where things happen just like that. You know.
And I don't think it does happen just like that
No.
in any city. I think, Geelong is going through a lot of change at the moment. We talked about the clever and creative city, and I think that, this is very much part and parcel of that dialogue that needs to happen. I think we need to sort of get more conversation out there. When we see, things that are happening commercially and, which Ostend are doing, that's the kind of thing that's going to start, putting a spotlight on this.
This conference that was held, what was the interest? I mean, was it sold out? Were people flocking or
Yes, it was. It was one of the biggest pure hemp conferences, as distinct from an expo, that's been held right around the world. I was on the organising committee, so I'm the secretary of the Australian Industrial Hemp Alliance. It's the peak industry body, and we had 237 registrants. That was a big conference. We had it at Ridges up on Myers Street, the corner of Myers and.
Bernadette, what was your impression? What was the atmosphere there?
It was great, and such a variety of people, people from academia, from industry, farmers, yes, so quite
In
a
fact,
broad...
farmers from Drysdale as well.
Yeah, and not what you would maybe typically think of when you think about hemp and you think about the other kinds of uses that we've talked about. It's not at all like that. These are ordinary people, as you say, farmers and people in business.
And we had beer makers. So hemp beer is excellent.
right.
So we had two types of hemp beer, one from WA, one
now we're talking.
absolutely, and the beer from WA is called Dr. Weedy. I don't know whether you drank any.
No,
But
not
it's
if you drink of it.
7.5%. It's excellent stuff. Now, last year, Mick, I was up at North Colorado, Denver, the North Colorado Hemp Expo called NOCO, the world's biggest hemp expo. And I drank hemp beer for the first time, and this was the second and third time that I drank it. Excellent stuff. 7.5%, the Dr. Weedy. So this conference was the interest, the energy. Jala Pulford, the Minister for Agriculture, came and did the closing address at the dinner. The Western Australian Minister for Agriculture spent the whole day there on the first day of the conference on the Wednesday. So government is starting to see what these opportunities are. Now, I think Mick, the answer to your question, the next steps, I need to work with Bernadette, and I said that to you, remember when we met at the conference, I said, if the Chamber of Commerce says this is a good idea, and the sticky idea, so it doesn't happen like that, but I've seen Geelong over the last 6 years, 7 years, 8 years with the mayor, with the talk, there's talk. I think it is a very clear, excellent idea that Geelong can simply say, we will minimise our use of plastic. And if Geelong Chamber of Commerce were to say, that's what we recommend, plastic-free, hemp-based economy, and you just drive that simple message, it ties in with clever and creative, and then the other organisations, more than 40 of them, can support, because that's a clear vision, Bernadette, and your background knowledge of, the Chamber's knowledge of textile, I think you could drive it.
And I tell you, here in the Sustainable Hour, week after week after week, we talk with people who are, you could say, fighting plastic. For various reasons, plastic in the ocean, microplastics in our drinking water. There's all sorts of aspects of plastic that we have to be careful with. Just last week we mentioned that there was a petition running trying to tell Woolworth and Coles not to wrap everything in plastic. What's interesting there is that 375 people have signed that. That's huge.
Yes.
It's not every day that you see any petition that goes to 375,000 people.
375,000.
Thousand, sorry.
Yes.
375,000 people have
Yes.
signed that. So what that tells me is that the people are with us.
Now, here's a very simple way to do that. I know we're going to go, but the one idea, if the city of Greater Geelong made a decision that said from now on, any uniform that we buy must be made out of hemp and organic cotton. That's all. That one decision would so drive the growth of interest in sustainability. And it's a very simple decision, and the question will be, oh, this costs more than crap cotton. And I say, so what?
So
I think
it boils down to that. Are we
yeah.
ready to invest?
Yeah, and I think it's first steps first. You know, I think that might be the ultimate objective, but ultimately you've got to bring people along on that journey, and they've got to get to a point of understanding and awareness and looking at all of those benefits. So I think there's still a lot of work to be done, to engage with the various people and organisations, the city leaders, and so on, to be able to really sort of embrace that and get that sort of clear vision happening.
Sorry, guys, I'm going to